All right, what up? It's Leonidas here from the Leonidas Marketing blog, and I am here in Baku, Azerbaijan. Behind me are the Flaming Towers that are quite well known and well represented here in Baku, Azerbaijan. Behind me is the city itself. So it looks a little bit like Rio de Janeiro of Copacabana and Ipanema, but I assure you it is not. Some quick fun facts. Azerbaijan is the first country to have liberalized female rights, and as well as it is the first country to have reached 50% of oil exports in the world back in like the early 1910s, 1920s. But unfortunately, because of that oil boom that they had, the city itself did develop quite rapidly. But that lake over there that you see is called the Caspian Sea, but it's actually a freshwater lake, is just filled with oil. So one interesting thing that I saw was a bird got stuck in the oil itself. It's quite bad. Like it is just oil, it's just completely filled with oil, that lake, that Caspian Sea. Nonetheless, that's the fact of industrialization. And the other thing is that because of the oil production here in Azerbaijan, it became a prime target for many empires, especially the Soviet Union, which tried to capture it. As soon as the Red Revolution happened in 1917, the communist government decided, let's capture Azerbaijan as well because it's a prime target for oil. So I've been living here for the last 2 weeks, 14 days. Tomorrow I fly to Ankara, Turkey. But my experience thus far here in Azerbaijan is that it's a very, very beautiful city, extremely well kept in the center of the city. So the city center itself is very, very nice. They've spent a lot of that oil money that they've garnered, that they've collected over the last, I guess, 3 decades since the fall of the Soviet Union, and they've basically spent it on construction projects such as new arenas, new airports, new residential complexes. Just they've went on a spending spree to architecturally make it a very, very presentable, very beautiful city that is reminiscent of the expenditures used in Dubai. So perhaps the government realizes that after a certain point, there is not going to be very much oil left in the future. So they've decided to somehow expound the expenditures on to potential future tourism. That's my assumption. I'm not sure, but I think that's essentially what Dubai did. They're future-proofing themselves after all the oil is gone, just like this flaming tower building. So another interesting thing about the city is that it has a very old center called İçeri Şehir. Pronounced quickly, it's İçeri Şehir. It is the old city. It's where the Sultan of the very past, the Khan, the Sultan, the king, used to reside for about 300 years or so. But then eventually the empire got taken over by other empires or other kingdoms or other tribes. And the city center itself, the old city center itself, İçeri Şehir, is very, very nice and very nicely kept. From my understanding, it used to be in ruins, but they're currently in the process of continuously rebuilding it, spending that oil money on making it presentable for future tourism and the locals itself. The people themselves are friendly for the most part. I haven't had any issues thus far, but I haven't really spoken to too many people here. The general consensus is that I would say you need some level of Russian to get by here. English is at a minimal. Russian is at a understandable level if you're speaking with the older demographics, but with the younger demographics, not all of them speak Russian, or they speak it at a basic level. So the Russian language is being phased out because at one point it was part of the Russian Empire for quite some time, but now it is being phased out for English because English is the language of business, and there's more money coming in from the Western world than there is from the Soviet sphere, the ex-Soviet sphere. So if you want to come here and you want to communicate fluently, either know Russian or obviously know Turkish. So the Azerbaijani language is actually derived from the Turkish language. So if you speak Turkish, you'll speak Azerbaijani without any issues. Fun fact, my last name, which is Kaplan, means tiger in Turkish. So one time when I was in Istanbul, I stopped at the airport and they asked me if I was Turkish, which I am not, but my last name does translate to tiger in Turkish. The cost of living here, very inexpensive. There is one restaurant here, Shawarma One, which has very, very delicious food. It has good salads and probably the best shawarma they can get. I tried shawarma in a few other places. Sometimes the shawarma is not very well cooked, is not fully cooked, or sometimes it just doesn't taste as good. Shawarma One is definitely the place to go if you want some good shawarma food. Also, walking around here, not a non-issue. There's no scooters here. So for example, before this, I was in Minsk. I lived there for about a month and a half. And in Minsk, they have scooters that you can use your phone to check out and rent everywhere. But here there is no scooter, so you basically have to either walk around or you go for an Uber. But I generally did most of my adventures here have been walking around. The Uber here, you have to get the Azerbaijani Uber, so you have to download that ahead of time. And once you download that, you have to set it up as well. So you cannot use the global version of Uber. You have to use the Azerbaijani version of Uber. And sometimes the GPS is not accurate, so the Uber driver can get lost along the way. Also, that section behind me that looks like beach is not a beach, it's just a cobblestone walkway, because for the most part, the lake behind me is completely filled with oil. It is the cost of industrialization. So for my 2 weeks here, I rented out an Airbnb. I got very lucky for how much I'm renting it out for. It's a massive apartment, and it came out to about $13 to $14 per day, which is insane considering it's right in the city center. I would balance out my days between walking around and exploring as much of the city as possible, while at the same time working pretty much every day, either from noon until 2 or 3 a.m. in the morning on various other projects. So it is between work and pleasure, trying to balance those out as much as possible. Ultimately, I do recommend coming here to Azerbaijan. They're upgrading the city very rapidly. Like I said, it's a very similar to the Dubai situation, where everything is being upgraded very quickly into new buildings everywhere. The city center itself is very clean, very organized, and the culture itself is not necessarily conservative, but it's not necessarily super liberal. They're transitioning into this Western mindset gradually, but for the most part, it is what it is. Ex-communist, ex-Muslim, future Muslim, present Muslim, super liberal, super progressive, etc., etc. Another thing you should definitely check out is the Heydar Aliyev Museum. Heydar Aliyev was the ex-president of Azerbaijan before he passed on the opportunity for president to his son. But Heydar Aliyev Museum is this massive complex, very beautiful. Looks like an alien spaceship. Honestly, to me, it looks like an alien spaceship. And inside there was several exhibitions you can check out. One of the exhibitions was a art exhibition that his daughter put up, and another exhibition was a doll museum, and then there was also a guitar and musical instruments from the Central and Middle East. So very fascinating museum, highly recommended. Generally speaking, if you are here for more than 3 days, maybe perhaps a week, I recommend walking around the entire city. If you're here for just 3 days, then definitely check out Heydar Aliyev Museum. Another fun fact, Azerbaijan means the land of fire. And the reason for this is that about 2,500 years ago, there was methane fires discovered in the mountains of Azerbaijan. So because there's so much oil and gas and methane under the subterranean surfaces of Azerbaijan, some of this methane would seep out into the surface, and then it would ignite, causing these little fires that would be present all over the mountains of Azerbaijan. So that is the reason why it's called the land of fire, or the land of eternal fire. And also Baku stands for wind pounded city, and this is because it is right near the lake, and when it is windy, for example yesterday, when it is windy, it is extremely windy. So if the floors are polished, if they are ceramic and they're wet, you will slip and slide, which is what I did yesterday, which is a lot of fun. So Baku, wind pounded city, and Azerbaijan, the land of eternal fire. So Leonidas here, 2019. Before this, Baku, Azerbaijan, I was in Kiev for 7 days. Then in Russia, Ivanovo, where my grandma lives, for 7 days. Then in Minsk for a month and a half. Then back in Kiev for about 2.5 months. And then before Kiev, I was in Paris. Oh, I forgot to mention I was also in Paris. And then before that in Toronto. So it's been a whole whirlwind of adventure. After this, I'm going to Ankara, Turkey. Then maybe Antalya, Turkey. Then Cyprus. Then we'll decide where we'll end up in the future. Probably back to Mexico. So Leonidas, 2019, November. Salute.